Cinema Classics is brought to you by the Gateway Film Center at 1550 North High Street, Columbus, Ohio. Further details and showtimes online at gatewayfilmcenter.com.
The award-winning Cinema Classics is produced by John DeSando and Johnny DiLoretto. Listen to the shows online at WCBE.org. I'm John DeSando.
And I'm Johnny DiLoretto. And this is
Cinema Classics.
Cinema Classics right here at the Gateway Film Center where we record.
Yeah, you know, we've got some tough ladies out there on the screens these days. But I wanted to point out we're inspired by Rosamund Pike in Gone Girl.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not inspired to. I mean, there's a tough lady.
Right.
Now I'm hoping.
Is she a tough lady?
I think she is.
You know what I mean?
Holy God!
Because I think this is where we're going to get into a lot of murky water, where, you know, sometimes the biggest, meatiest roles for women aren't necessarily the most positive.
True.
Aren't necessarily the most, I don't know, the kind of role that you really want to say represents a strong woman.
I mean, I'm talking about women who could kick butt.
Okay.
But women who are also really smart. No.
Like Scarlett Johansson in the Avengers movies.
Yes,
as Black
exactly.
Widow.
Yes.
So a woman that can handle herself physically.
Yes, but there's also a woman who's tough. For instance, one of my candidates,
Yeah.
Ma Jode.
Yeah, she's crazy. From White Heat.
Oh, good for you. No, I'm thinking of.
The Grapes of Wrath.
Right, Grapes of Wrath.
Yeah, I was thinking. Yeah, I had my
That's great. That's a great
classic
one.
Hollywood mothers mixed up.
But anyway, so she's not physical,
But
she is, the heart of that migration for the Okies.
Yeah.
So there, for me, is a tough lady. Now, if you get Reese Witherspoon in Wild,
yeah,
and where she's a woman who goes off for 1,000 miles on the Pacific coast with her own pack by herself, that's a pretty tough lady.
yeah. If you've ever pulled over for speeding, you'll know that Reese Witherspoon can be quite the handful. You've not seen those videos. Yeah, that's interesting. Well, that's a kind of a role that I think we see far too little of, where she's essentially the focus of the film. I mean, in a way that, not exactly in the way that James Franco was the focus of 127 Hours.
No, it's a good.
You don't always see that.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
That's where I'm talking about. That's that great middle ground, or actually, that's not middle ground. That's far off on the other side of what we very rarely, if ever, see, which is a woman holding the screen for an extended period of time where her story and her interiority has nothing to do with a relationship or, success based on heterosexual validation.
Girl with the dragon tattoo kind of fit that.
It kind of
isolated. I mean, there's nothing social about that woman.
No, but still, I don't know. There's something oddly fetishized about her.
Okay.
Yeah.
She's
still there's still something very sexual about it. Like, I feel like we're still watching. We're being titillated by that kind of character.
Good.
What about somebody like Katharine Hepburn in The African Queen?
Okay, good choice. Oh, I'm with you.
Now, it falls into that classical Hollywood stuff where, Bogart's the tough guy, Bogart's the rough and tumble expert who's commandeering the boat, but Hepburn, it's a meaty part. You cannot argue that they're not sharing the screen equally. Whether or not some of the ideas that inform the characterization of Rose are a little outdated, however, it's a powerful role. She gives an amazing performance, and you're invested in that character. And that's what I think we lack. We're not always invested in these female characters, even if they can kick ass, like Scarlett Johansson.
What about Glenn Close in Fatal Attraction?
Well, that's a whack job.
Well, you were talking about the sexual dynamic.
Yeah, clearly that sets women back years.
How about Hunger Games and Divergent?
Yeah, no, now that's a step in the right direction,
Yeah,
right? A
yeah.
powerful lead. You know, they're heading up an action franchise. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and they're intelligent, they're beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
They're-
See, you gotta say they're beautiful. I mean, it goes right back to that.
Well, I said intelligent first.
Yeah.
Right.
It'd
And
be interesting if we had a couple of real dogs heading up. So,
I've got one.
Yeah?
Imelda Staunton and Vera Drake.
Hmm. Well, that's yeah.
It's what
That's
downright homely.
That's one of your British
Yes.
favorite.
Yeah.
Is that Mike Leigh?
Mike Lee, right? Yeah, you're good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uma Thurman, Kill Bill.
Yeah, that's great. Because it's you do kind of get involved. My barometer for a strong female character is if, as a man, I get lost in her perspective. If I get lost in her point of view and I start to care about and feel the things she's going through.
Okay.
And definitely in the Kill Bill films, I'm right there with her, with Beatrice Kiddo. You know, I think the moment in those movies that really solidifies that feeling is when she's buried in the casket. She's buried alive.
Okay.
And she flashes back to her training by the Kung Fu master.
Okay.
And then it comes back and she punches her way out of the casket, and she fights her way up through like 10 feet of earth.
Yes.
And pops out of it. When you gasp for air with her, you have successfully sort of transcended your gender limitations there.
Would then you accept,
Yeah.
with your very rigorous standards here, you're talking intelligence, dexterousness, would you accept Ripley?
Of course.
Okay.
Ripley is a great female character.
Yeah.
I think in a way that there are some problematic things. I mean, she's sexualized, you know, especially in the first film, especially in that Ridley Scott movie when she's in her underwear at the end.
Yeah.
However, it all makes thematic sense because the creature is a giant phallus. I mean, that H.R. Geiger design, the head is a phallus. There's no doubt about it. So playing with that is interesting to me, and still empowering her at the same time. I've always loved Ripley. I think that character is a great action hero, regardless of gender.
Well then, apparently one of my next candidates is not going to make it. Princess Leia.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
She's
interesting.
She works more. You know, help me, Obi-Wan, help me. She works more at a distance.
It's funny you should start there because that's how she seems. She seems like a damsel in distress with the help me, Obi-Wan. But as that film progresses and as the series progresses, she turns out to be something more than a damsel in distress. She's problematic, but I don't think she's just a whiny, screaming, helpless hanger-on.
Yeah. Now I'm wondering then, to fit into your scheme, which I accept, I think it's a good one, how I put Hilary Swank in $1 Million Baby.
Also another very powerful figure. And that is different because that, to me, is just a fully realized character that happens to be female.
Okay.
Now, the gender dynamic plays into the theme and narrative of the film. You know, Clint Eastwood has a hard time accepting her as a female boxer, but then once he does, really that falls to the wayside and it becomes about the relationship.
Yeah.
And I think we're invested in that relationship. I mean, that's what makes that movie so powerful.
Well, and the interesting thing about that role is that she's visceral, she's tough physically, initially. I mean, we start off with that, and then we work into a character whom we can invest, be sympathetic toward, and so on. Where others are maybe moving toward their role, their tough role, like I even think Ripley doesn't start out tough, right? I mean, the circumstances bring that out.
She starts out no nonsense, for sure, but then, circumstances sort of bring out the hero in her.
Yeah. And I don't know whether I get a real strong feel for our complex female when I talk about Sarah Connor in The Terminator. whether she's fleshed out enough for us to even talk about.
I think it's only interesting in as much as you see the progression from Sarah Connor in Terminator, the first Terminator, to the second Terminator. So in the first Terminator, she's being hunted, and she relies on this guy Reese to protect her. And in the second film, after so many years have passed, we meet this character and she's completely transformed.
Yeah.
She is a warrior.
Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting,
Yeah.
that's what makes that sequel so fascinating, is that it turns all the characters from the first movie on their head. I mean, including the Terminator himself, who was a villain in the first film, and in the second film, he's the hero.
Good, nice analysis. Now, here's one that it begins to get complex according to our formula.
Yeah.
If you look at Hannibal Lecter,
Yeah.
and the two females that appear in each film, one in each film.
Right.
In the first one, Jodie Foster, does she fit?
Yes.
Okay.
Jodie Foster is perfect in that movie. Jodie Foster is, again, we're watching her. She seems unsure of herself. She's raw. She's fragile.
Yeah.
And yet, she becomes kind of tempered through that, through those exchanges
Yeah.
with Hannibal Lecter in that investigation. She's tough, and again, Jonathan Demme puts you so squarely in her shoes that you begin to experience those interactions through her point of view, regardless of your gender.
Right.
Now, the mistake in the second film, in Hannibal,
That's what I wanted to ask you about.
is casting Julianne Moore.
I like. Now she's tough.
She's tough, but she's tough on paper tough.
Yeah.
She's not, she doesn't have the steely quality that Jodie Foster has. And she's miscast, quite frankly. She's miscast and misdirected.
It's an unusual cast.
And so that that dynamic suffers. I believe, had Jodie Foster returned for Hannibal, we would think of that movie a lot differently. I'm a fan of Hannibal. I think it's a fun
Yeah.
follow-up. And again, does that reverse thing where the villain becomes kind of the hero.
Well, I guess we move toward the inevitable point
Mm-hmm.
of considering a couple of our favorite femmes,
Yeah,
Thelma and Louise.
well, that's great, right? And you know that movie is is addressing the very thing that we're talking about right now: perceptions of women, perceptions of their ability to take action or inability, their emotionality. That movie is directly talking about those things. Yeah. And when we first see them, when we first meet Thelma and Louise, and they seem like just a couple of fun ladies out for a good time, and they seem incapable of handling the situation, and that is turned also on its ear. And as they make their run for it, we learn all kinds of things about them, about who they are, and they become stronger characters. They become less reliant. It's really all about them becoming less reliant on men.
Oh yeah.
Who are hunting them down.
Yeah. This one that I saw last night, Big Eyes, about Margaret Keane, the painting, The Big-Eyed Children,
Mm-hmm.
is quintessential enslavement in the 50s and 60s of women to men.
Mm-hmm.
And this gifted, kitschy, but really talented artist is subsumed by her husband until she takes him to court after they're divorced.
Yeah.
To establish her identity. The beginning, way then needing what we now have in Jennifer Lawrence, in The Hunger Games, a totally self-sufficient, smart,
Right.
tough woman.
Yeah. That's great.